Joining us is a gentleman who is no stranger to the Observer. Let me start off by wishing him a happy new year and all the best to his family and everyone. We're talking about UNC Senator Wade Mark. A pleasant good evening to you, comrade.
A pleasant good evening to you, Mikee K, and to your very important listening audience on this very important Observer period. Well, when I say Observer period, this very important exercise that we are now going to be engaged in, which is organized by your good self via the Observer. Thank you so very much.
Thank you so much indeed. So much today, and I know it's been hectic for you. I mean, attending the funeral of former Prime Minister Basdeo Panday in South Trinidad. So many people turning out in their numbers, of course. What stood out the most for you today?
Well, you know, today was a very solemn occasion for our brother, our comrade, our founding father, our first political leader who became Prime Minister of our great country, Trinidad and Tobago. What stood out for me today, Mikee K, was the outpouring of the kind of love from the people, from all walks of life, all different shades of opinions, and people came together to pay their final respects to a man, to an outstanding icon, to a giant, to an individual who has made and will record indelibly in the annals of history a rich contribution to humanity. I think it was a fitting tribute by the outpouring of hundreds of people who attended the funeral service at Sapa today, later to be at the shore of peace. And on the way to that shore of peace, thousands of people witness the final and bid farewell, finally, to our great brother, our great national hero, our freedom fighter and liberator for the poor, the downtrodden, the vulnerable, the marginalized, who gave his blood, his sweat, his tears, who made tremendous sacrifices for the people of our beloved country. So what stood out for me, and which will always stand out for me, would be the outpouring of love, right, by the people of Trinidad and Tobago for the late and great, beloved former Prime Minister of our Republic, Basdeo Panday.
You know, looking at what was written in the tribute to the former Prime Minister from the political leader of the United National Congress and opposition leader Kamla Persad-Bissessar, states, the genesis of Mr. Panday's lifelong contribution to public service stemmed from his unswerving and clear-sighted view that our society must be remodeled with equal and fair opportunities for all and a progressive, sustainable economy. I mean, when you look at what's happening currently, it's quite clear you can see that division which has been outlined with the haves and the have-nots. You hear people talk about the 1%. You hear people talk about the elite. People talk about that disconnection as far as the average citizen having, access to many things that they would need to elevate themselves. And going back to what is said here, that Mr. Panday's lifelong contribution consisted of a remodeling with equal and fair opportunities for all and a progressive, sustainable economy. What does that tell you when you look at what's happening currently?
Yeah, I think the honorable leader of our great party, Kamla Persad-Bissessar, has captured in essence what Mr. Panday's lifelong struggle was all about. he was attempting to bring about a society that is rooted and grounded in certain critical principles: equality, unity, inclusion, meritocracy, and most importantly, justice for all. Mr. Panday, as the founding father of our great party, recognized, Mikey, that you cannot bring about the kind of happiness in our nation, in our society of 1.4 million people, on an island in terms of just under 2 square miles of land or territory, without bringing those people of different and diverse races and ethnicities and classes and social strata and different religions and status and station and regions, without uniting the people. You need to unite the people in an effort to address their needs. Mr. Panday has always said, Mikee K, we have to deal not only with the physical needs of the people, which is food, clothing, and shelter, but the non-physical needs of the people: freedom and culture and the arts. And he recognized, to do so, you must use your resources within the state. The most important resource being the human being, in an effort to prioritize. That is the issue. I could never forget, because I had the distinct honor and privilege of serving in the first cabinet between 1995 and 2000 of Mr. Panday government. And Mikee K, I can tell you, with $12 billion, a maximum of $15.8 billion, Mr. Basdeo Panday, the Honorable late and great Basdeo Panday, was able to use those resources of the finances, I should say, of $12 billion in order to deliver quality goods and services to the people of our country. That was manifested in the social sector. It was manifested and how it was manifested in the social sector? Mikee K, universal secondary education for all. Mikee K, so many tens of thousands of children under P&M for 30 years and even above had no opportunity of being exposed to education at the secondary school level because of the lack of places and spaces for them. Mr. Panday constructed not only more primary schools, but he also constructed more secondary schools. Mr. Panday also introduced the dollar for dollar. You put $1, I put $1, and you can go to the University of the West Indies, access tertiary education. So in the field of that social vision, that social thrust to ensure equity was at the forefront of Mr. Panday. Mr. Panday, during his short stint as Prime Minister of our country, also focused on protecting our women when he brought into being the Maternity Protection Act. When Mr. Panday recognized that we were cloaked in secrecy, he brought in the sunshine of transparency and scrutiny in public affairs. And that was manifested through the Judicial Review Act, through the Constitution Amendment Act, where he established under Section 66A of our Constitution a number of interdepartmental committee known as Joint Select Committee, bringing the executive to account for for decision making by the legislature. So Mr. Panday's vision was to ensure not only that the people were clothed, were fed, were housed, but they were given freedom. They were able to exercise the arts and the culture and move towards creating greater and greater happiness for the greater number of our citizens. That is a legacy of Mr. Basdeo Panday.
And of course, his daughter, paying tribute to him today, mentioned his sense of humor. She also mentioned his fighting spirit. She said it's not, he always lived by, it's not always about being the best, but doing your best. Did you get that? I mean, under his guidance, under his watch, being a part of his team, his government, someone who would say, listen, you know, this is not about giving up. It's about making sure that all that we have promised, all that we have campaigned on, all that we have put forward in our vision must become a reality.
And that is why Mr. Panday was a very disciplined individual, because it was about doing your best with the limited resources you had at your disposal. And that is why Mr. Panday has said repeatedly, whilst he was in government and whilst even outside of government, but more so when he was in government, that the resources of the state, the resources of the people must be used in the interest of the people, because his philosophy was about creating happiness, because he always advised us that the real and only purpose of life is the creation of happiness. If you don't have happiness through those very important necessities of life that I mentioned earlier, how can a society progress? How can a nation move forward? How can we be able to make and achieve major advances for our people? Mr. Panday was able to do so much, Mikey, with so little. I brought to the attention of this nation a couple days ago how Mr. Panday, with $12 billion in 1996, and in 1997 with a little more, in 1998 with a little more, in 1999 with a little more, and in 2000 to 2001 up to $15.8 billion. Miss Brother Mikee K, he increased old age pension.
Yeah.
Not once, not twice, but three times.
Yeah.
From $356 per month to $420 per month, then $520 per month. And then the last time he increased old age pension was in 1999 with a budget of $13 billion, $620 per month. Not only that, Mikey, he increased the income ceiling from $5,000 to $7,000 to allow those people who were accessing NIS, because the ceiling was, if you have a combined income of $5,000, you couldn't get pension. Panday increased the income ceiling from 5 to 7 so that the elderly in our society can access both their old age pension and their national insurance. Never forget, Mr. Panday brought the sugar workers from poverty, starvation, wages, exploitation and oppression in the sugarcane fields to a standard of living unprecedented. They used to work for $5.04 per hour. Panday in a struggle, 1 week in, 1 week out. He had a strike, 1 week in, 1 week out. And he got 100% increase for sugar workers. They moved from $5.04 an hour to $10.08 an hour. He abolished child labor in the sugar fields of our country. He was able to ensure guarantee work around the year for the sugar workers. He brought into being low-cost housing through the Sugar Welfare Development organization, where people could have gone and get loans at peppercorn rates so that they can build their homes, because his focus, as you rightly said, was not being well, but doing the best you can with the limited resources at your disposal to improve the quality of life and the standard of living of the people of our country.
And I think that's why he connected with the average citizen on the ground. Now, of course, there was a rendition of the song, I Did It My Way, which was made popular by Frank Sinatra and, of course, Elvis Presley, and it was sung today by our very own Cass Diffenthal. And in that song, if you look at the lyrics, and I want to ask you now, based on your personal experience with Mr. Panday, there's a part that says, regrets, I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. I did what I had to do, I saw it through without exemption. I planned each charted course, each careful step along the byway, and more, much more, I did it my way. What do you think his political regrets would have been?
I think Mr. Panday's major political regret would have been the inability, the betrayal, the failure of that political experiment of 1986, the One Love formula, the formation of the National Alliance for Reconstruction. I think that was one of his greatest regrets, because why? He put out everything in order to bring about that one love. Because remember, Mr. Panday was always on love.
Yeah.
He was always on unity. He was always on brotherhood. He wanted unity of the people. And here was the first opportunity given to unite our people under one banner in order to transform and diversify our economy and put power into the hands of the people. And what happened? That dream of one love was shattered in 1988 when Mr. Panday and his ULF colleagues were all expelled from the NAR. I think when he said he did it his way, and of course he has a few regrets, I would say one of those regrets, Mikee K, was that inability of the leadership at that time to stir and to steer this very important ship called the NAR into a massive victory into the 21st century, where all the opportunities would have been given to the people through inspiring leadership to bring about, those very lofty ideals and principles of equality, of justice, of unity, of inclusion, and of meritocracy. These are fundamental principles that underlie the basis of Mr. Panday's overall overarching objective of seeking always to promote happiness amongst the people of our beloved republic.
And let me ask you something, Mr. Mark. Moving forward, I mean, what kind of influence do you think he would have moving forward on the political landscape here in Trinidad and Tobago?
Just repeat that for your partner.
What kind of influence you think he would have, even in his passing, what kind of influence you think he would have moving forward with the politics in our country?
Yeah, I think Mikee K, the Honorable Basdeo Panday will in fact manifest a greater or larger than life image in his passing. I think that, for instance, what Mr. Panday was able to really exhibit and to put into effect whilst he was alive, and he fostered and created an institution called the UNC. I think that, for instance, the young people, and we have a responsibility to promote those principles, those lofty ideals, those goals, those objectives that Mr. Panday fought for and stood in defense of, and that is creating equality, equity, creating social justice, creating national harmony, promoting national unity, having a system based not on nepotism and favoritism, but a system based on meritocracy, and using our resources, our natural resources, guided by the human experience in order to bring about, the greatest happiness for the greatest number of people. Because at the end of the exercise, at the end of the process, at the end of the day, what we are concerned about is really building, constructing, promoting, and expanding a society that is bedrocked, that is anchored on principles that can be translated into reality. And at the end of the process, we bring about a civilization that is based on love, that is based on peace, that is based on justice and unity, where we are able to provide the best for our people and to bring about, as he has always fought, in defense of fairness, justice, unity, equality, and equity for everyone, regardless of color, regardless of race, regardless of creed, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of religion. He always and has always been committed to unity. Not a racial bone you can find in the body of that man, that great soldier who has now gone to the great beyond. He was never associated with racism. He never promoted racialism. Mr. Panday stood for national unity. He stood for equality. He stood for justice. He wanted equality of opportunity, hence the Equal Opportunity Commission that he created and promoted, that the PNM never put into effect. It took the Privy Council to force the PNM to bring into effect the Equal Opportunity Act of Trinidad and Tobago. That is the man. That is the metal of the man. That is the makeup of the individual. Always focusing on justice, on fair play, on equity, on equality for all our people. And before he went, Mikee, he said, what we have to do is to reform our constitution. We have inherited an alien set of rules and laws through a constitution that is alien to our existence. And we need to reform our constitution. And that is a struggle that we need to embark upon.
I agree with that fully. He was correct. It's totally obsolete now, and we need that. I want to thank you so much, Senator, for taking time out. Again, I know you had a hectic day. And we do hope, of course, that this essence of humility is going to be, acknowledged and recognized and kept within our political landscape moving forward. It has definitely been quite an experience having such a good man among us, and memories live on. Thank you so much for taking time out to linking with us here this evening.
Thank you, Mikey.
And all the best of luck to you and your entire team. Take care.
Thank you. Thank you.